Welcome to Navigating Change, everybody, the podcast from Tybal Inc. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here with the maestro of management, Howard Tybal.
Do you spend time in advance preparing what those things? See, that's the maestro of management.
I do. Do you know what? It's like foreshadowing, and it's alliteration. It satisfies all of my academic kind of yearnings.
What does this ever happen to you late at night where you're like, oh my God, I got to get up and I got to write that down?
I do. I have a little field notes journal right here. There's a little field notes brand
I'm
journal.
looking at it, people. He does have the field notes journal.
It has my notes in it right here. These are my midnight notes.
Hold that still.
I'm not going to show you what it says.
All
then
right,
you'd see my innermost thinkings.
Yeah, I don't want to go there.
You have no idea. Later this month, Howard is going to be heading back to Cornell to join the ranks of presenters for this year's American Management Institute Conference. And today we're going to be sharing a bit of a refresher, some lessons learned over the last year since the last time he was there, and talk about this decision-making and the value of line management development, particularly in higher ed. But before we get started, you should find out more about Navigating Change at TybalInc.com, where you can subscribe to the show by email, iTunes, or your podcast app of choice, and connect with us on Twitter and LinkedIn, all at TybalInc.com. And for those of you heading to NACUBO in Nashville, don't forget to look for us. Howard will be presenting throughout the event, July 18th through 21st, and we would love to see you. I say we there, but that's a sad miscommunication.
Yeah, alas, no, you're not going to be there, are you?
I will not
this
be there.
time.
I don't know who's going to open your wine bottles for you. That's upsetting.
You don't want to give away my little tricks.
Oh,
and by the way,
we're not
doing. We're not doing wine this time. We're doing something else special.
I wouldn't even know.
Because we have Russ Moore coming from Colorado. Hint, hint. They got great beer in Colorado. All right, never mind.
All right, so the American Management Institute is coming up July 27th through 31st at Cornell University, co-sponsored by friends of the show, ICUBO. It's a professional conference, this AMI, Howard. It's for line managers, department heads, other leaders across the higher ed organization. But I don't see senior board leadership. I don't see senior business officers called out on the list anywhere. And so I have this big question. Is this audience ready for the Howard Tybal experience?
The short answer is yes, they are ready. So let me tell you. Here's what's great about this Cornell experience is that, we all know there are people in every one of our organizations that have the title, they got the name, they got the look. They're the ones that are in charge. They're pushing the buttons, telling people what to do. These are the people getting the work done. Mm-hmm. This is who comes to this conference. And what's wonderful about it, last year was the first year I did it, I believe. I think that's right. And the focus there was on this similar topic, but I've had a year to continue to refine this, which is how do you, as a team, make effective decisions? And there's a way of breaking out the different conversations you need to have. So I had this epiphany this morning, right?
Yeah.
When I'm at the gym, and every one of us, by the way, should find those places. What is your place, by the way? Where do you go to have your epiphanies, Pete? This is really an important conversation. It's separate, but real quick.
Yeah, no, it's when I walk, I'm big into step tracking. I'm tracking my steps, so I put the phone in the pocket and I go for long walks, and in the shower. Shower is always a good place for me. That's the only place that's really silent for me. So
see, for me, I put music on my head, and when I'm at the gym, and I'm saying this for any listener. Look for those places and find ways to discipline yourself to be in situations where you can have those insights that don't come in the normal course of the day. So I'm in the gym and I'm the elliptical and I'm working up a sweat. And usually when I'm in that state, things just sort of pop. And I was watching, and part of it was watching this video. And this woman was talking about the difference between attitude and behavior. And the conventional wisdom is change your attitude and behavior will follow. And I've been actually saying that. I've been playing a video over the years, this guy who talks about attitude. And I agree with this on some level, but I think when I look at my own behavior and my own success, it really is about changing behavior, and then that has an impact on attitude. Now, I think this is really an important behind-the-scenes piece that we're going to talk about at the conference, and that is, in the end, you're going to learn a lot of interesting things, I think, right? From not just me, but other speakers. But in the end, if you don't change your behavior in some capacity, none of it's going to make much of a difference.
Right. Because you have the return from conference problem, right? You get back into the real world and your behavior doesn't change because you're back into the track.
That's right. So to me, it's a question of intentionality. We all have places where we've been successful, and we're going to talk about that. I'm going to ask the people in the room, and I'm going to be doing this increasingly, whatever level you're at, whether you're a college president or you're a director or you're a vice president or if you're working in IT, whatever the story is, what do you need to do so that you can step into that next thing? And we all know what those next things are. It often requires taking a risk, right? One of the wonderful quotes I heard Alan Zimmerman say is, if you want something better in your life, a new job, happier family life, whatever the story is, sometimes you have to take a risk. And when it comes to trying to produce change in the workplace, behavior is everything. Are we willing to step out of our normal way of looking at things? Are we willing to say, you know what? That's not the problem. We sit down and we defer to the group to determine what the problem is. But what I've discovered, and we're going to talk about this at the conference, is how do we really know what the problem is? Are we looking at a symptom, or are we really discussing the root causes? And there's a decision-making process that I'm going to lay out for the group, and they're going to give them a chance to talk about and work in small groups to learn how to use this tool to have more robust conversations. But the heart of it is, are you willing to change yourself? Are you willing to step into that next thing? And that next thing might be you're willing to speak truth to power, as you have often talked about, Pete, with me.
Yeah,
right?
For me, it gets back to this very simple behavior. I love that you're talking about attitude and behavior, because whenever I find myself thinking the other way, that if I change my attitude, my behavior will improve, I always think about the smile test, right? That it is proven that if you are not happy and you physically smile, it will change the way you feel. The endorphins are connected to the experience of smiling, not to your inner wellspring of happiness. It is the behavior that drives your intentionality. And I find that so powerful. It's just such a simple thing. I just get frustrated. I get mad. I walk around smiling like an idiot. And about 5 minutes later, I'm feeling pretty good about things.
That's right.
That drives to all this stuff. So let's get back to the decision-making model, because, I think we get into this, particularly if I think back to my days as a line manager, we get into this situation where we think, the decisions are made above my pay grade. So why is it important for people coming into this conference to be ready and willing to embrace a new muscle or a new skill about getting involved in a decision-making process? How does that make them better contributors? Why should they come and sit down and listen to this?
There are 3 roles that we play in an organization, and some of us play more one than the other, and I'm going to give you the 3 roles. One role is you're a leader. Now, you might say, no, I'm not, because I need to have followers. Well, a follower might be people. If the interpretation of being a leader is that you have people that report to you, that's not the definition of leadership. That's the definition of management. So a leader is somebody that can influence others, and you have followers. All right? Whatever that story is, you might be on a project team and you have an opportunity, even though you're just a team member or you're part of a department, you have an opportunity to lead something, an initiative, but it has to be something that you're passionate about. Another role that we play is as manager, managing tasks, right? We all have to do it. No matter what level of organization we're in, we're a manager. And the third level is, aside from that concept of leadership, having followers following us down a path, is the strict idea of thinking we need to influence a change. So with those 3 sets of sort of roles in mind, it doesn't matter where you are in the chain of command. You are a member of a team that, I can tell you more often than not, needs individuals to step up and either identify the elephant in the room or something that we should be doing that nobody's saying. And those two things, too many of us sit on our hands when in fact we have an opportunity to step up. So step up and speak, here's what I think is really going on. And I think too often in the workplace, we wait to get permission to step forward. Well, in the session that we're going to be in, I'm going to speak to this idea of, are you waiting for permission to step forward, or are what you're doing is finding a way to push on an agenda and see if you can get people to follow you. The decision-making model, which is a 7-step process, is going to teach you how to engage in distinct conversations that all in the end tie together to go from understanding the problem to having a vision, to having a mechanism for how we get through it, how we actually decide what should we do, how do we brainstorm, to then designing a work plan and then making sure that we're holding each other accountable. Those are the major steps in decision making. And I'll tell you one of the other things that I've discovered. The model that I sort of started working with in my consulting and then teaching very much follows the concept, and it almost happened inadvertently. I mean, I think I was very much influenced by Simon Sinek in his concepts around just ask why. He puts why forward. And when I look at what I've developed in terms of a flow, what I've discovered is most of the time we start with what's most tangible. What do you want to do?
Right.
Then we get to how we want to do it, and then maybe we get to why we should do it.
And we're justifying or rationalizing after the fact.
That's right. And the model that I'm going to be proposing and teaching at the conference, at the AMI conference, is starting with why. Because if you don't have a compelling why, maybe whatever initiative you think is so important, it's not worth doing, right? So what I'm going to instruct people is show them a framework for how to really get into the why of the idea, the why of the opportunity, the why of solving the problem. Then go from there. How can you do it? What are the different ways you can do it? And that's fundamentally brainstorming. And then what should come out of this? And too often, we go into decision making with, we think we understand the problem, we come together, somebody proposes a plan, and we skip all the important conversations. So this is at the heart of what we're going to uncover for people. And then in the end, people have to decide if they're going to take this model back with them and lay it on the table in front of their peers and say, let's try this. That it's a risk to do that, right? You walk into a team. Some people, I can't tell you the number of times people have said to me, I wish I had this 6 months ago when I started the project. Well, you know what? 9 times out of 10, you're going to be in the middle of something and you have to integrate something new. This is an opportunity to take this approach and weave it back in and inspire people to be able to engage or experiment with this approach.
And that's one of the things I love about the approach in general. And I would just say that if you haven't been through this experience, or if you don't have a model for figuring out why you're taking on projects before you get into the meat of the project management itself, there is real benefit in taking a step back and answering that question: why are we here? What is it that we're hoping to get out of this project? Because even if you come to the same conclusion that we're doing the right thing, you have just taken ownership of that process, right? You have taken ownership in what you are doing every day, and that increases the investment in vision, increases the investment in motivation, and in the end, I think creates better work.
Yeah, and I think people are looking for this. I mean, they're looking for ways to break up the monotony of how we normally come together and meet.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, there's, in a sense, I think the NBC show The Office was built on a premise of what it's like to work in an office environment, right? There's all the dysfunction that goes on. And the dysfunction is fundamentally that we've got so many different agendas going on at the same time, and pulling people together to have one conversation or to be able to make sure we're all in the same conversation is so interesting. If you watch Teams, 10 people will be talking about the same topic, and if you stop them and say, all right, what what are you trying to get at right now? You went around the room, you would discover inevitably the group is having different conversations at the same time, thinking they're all talking about the same thing, and they're not.
Exactly.
It's fascinating. And I think it's a real empowering. And I think the challenge for people is to say, how do I take this back then and institutionalize this? And this is where taking a risk comes into play, because, this is the classic dilemma with people that go to conferences, right? You go to a conference, you get inspired, and you say, I wish so-and-so was here. So
Yeah.
I can go back with them, and the two of us can tell people, this is what we're going to do. I got to do this myself now. And in some sense, conferences force people into having to demonstrate a higher level of leadership.
It absolutely does. And that comment, and I have said it, I'm victim of my own frustration here. I've said, gosh, I wish my boss, manager, whatever was here to experience this too. But the implication of those words are, this is a waste of my time, because I will not be able to do anything with this.
Yeah. And then, by the way, you go back, one of the things you can do is say, you know what? I'm going to make sure this person comes with me next time.
Right.
Right. And I'll tell you, I did a workshop when there was the president of the school and there was their CFO, and we were in small teams, and the power of having them be together, cell phones turned off, thinking about the issues that impact both of them, and how they're going to work through some strategic issues, as opposed to the CFO having to go back and explain to them why it's so important.
Right. Right. And that's, I guess, is my point, right? Don't give up. Don't let yourself give up, even if you're attending alone, because it is your responsibility to go back to your organization and make the case if you really believe in it. And if you believe in it, that'll come through. Change that behavior.
Yeah. And the other thing, because I'm thinking about, well, what's exciting about this? And I think it's about breaking things up. I think there's too much. If you find in your organization there's too much business as usual, we're doing things the same way, and the answer to a lot of what we do is, well, that's how we've always done it. The only thing you can do is you can step forward and you can put a stake in the ground and say, let's try something different, and not to reserve this for the people who are making the big paychecks, right? Too often it's about people are waiting for the boss to say, let's do things differently, because it is a risk. It is a risk to stand out. But this is, to me, there's greater satisfaction in this, and you have the opportunity to make a positive impact. It's a real demonstration of leadership. And I think more and more, especially in higher education, we need to see that kind of behavior from people, where it's not about self-serving. It's not about, look at me, I'm the leader. This is about, I've got a passion for making a change in how we do our admissions. I have a passion for how we think about enrollment. I want to bring in, can we think about bringing in other people to open up some of the conversations? And sometimes your boss won't be the one to instigate that. You may need to be the one to influence your boss to try something different. And that's going to be a central theme at AMI, is how do you influence people around you to move in a positive direction and not wait for them to figure it out, because very often they won't.
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Well, they want. Well, what were you going to say?
No. That was good. You got to call people out sometimes.
Yeah, and again, maybe I'm embellishing, maybe I'm exaggerating. Very often they won't. Here's my attitude. Whenever I make a bold statement, I look in the room to see who I pissed off. That's the person that should be listening more carefully. Because if you're not affected by a bold statement, then you're like, you know what? It doesn't apply to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
If you're pissed off because somebody says something that offends you, maybe there's something for you to look at yourself.
Yes. At least there is a higher likelihood of that. But I was just going to add that if you this is a conversation about bench strength, right? In terms of line management, this is a conversation about becoming somebody who is a better contributor to the university, to the institution, and being able to improve your skills to get to that point, and being able to have a collective understanding of these concepts around group decision making. It is endemic on each of us to take that responsibility, and sometimes the people who are in charge of making that decision don't know or won't figure it out because they are really wrapped up doing their own things, trying to lead the institution. And so you just take ownership of it, right?
Yeah. So yes. And I think that you're speaking there to how important it is, no matter what role you are, to say, what is my contribution in this? Am I willing to not wait for the group to decide, but to be willing to put something out? And I'm going to give a short tidbit from the workshop. And here's the number one thing I think is missing is inspiration. And the reason inspiration is missing is because we're all so caught up in what it's going to take to get the stuff done, as opposed to having a vision for a future state that we can actually describe as if it's here right now. And I can tell you, and we're going to do an exercise like this when we're together, when you can put language around a future state 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, and get a group talking about what that future state, what that future success looks like, as if it's here today, as if it's being written about in the Wall Street Journal or the Chronicle of Higher Education, the whole demeanor of individuals changes. What slips away is that feeling of, that tiredness and, oh my God, work plans and project plans. And this is where we need to start the conversations from, which is, what is our vision? And then let's build the work plan around a clear vision. That's where we're gonna, as a group, we're gonna dig into. And when you come from that place, you end up finding that you're touching your passion and you're touching other people's passion, because otherwise work is just drudgery, right?
Right.
It's just, getting through the day and making sure you check off your lists. And our excuse is we don't have time for this. But I would suggest we don't have time not to deal with this. We have to deal with this if we want to really inspire positive change.
I think that's as good a lesson as any to leave us here. Well done. Once again,
thank you.
Your wisdom outshines
your good looks. What'd you call me? What'd you call me at the beginning?
Maestro of management. The
maestro of management.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take that. That's this week. Next week it'll be something. Do you have a whole list ready to go?
I'm not gonna give away that.
All right, never mind. Secret. Never mind. By the way, the beard looks good.
This is
I
wisdom,
like it.
Right? The gray part represents wisdom.
Yeah, and it's growing gray and right in just the perfect spots.
Yeah, I don't know if I like this guy I'm looking at in the mirror. I don't know if I like that guy. I don't know how long he's going to stick around, but for now, it's...
I know. Yeah, well, I'm glad... Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing that up on the show. People love this stuff. Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to the show. It's a pleasure for us to join you each week. Learn more about the show, TibleLink.com, and we will hopefully see you at Nakubo and AMI just the week after. On behalf of Howard Teibel, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week on Navigating Change, the podcast from Teibel Inc.